11375 presents the real journey of an entrepreneur, a live discussion that will help us understand the layers and failures of what it really means to live out your vision and dreams. During this series, we will talk with a number of individuals who have made the leap in the areas of finance, business consulting, real estate development, mental wellness, and as an author. We will also discuss the importance of managing our finance and the importance of collaborating with others to meet success. Please like and subscribe on YouTube and Facebook at 11375. And we thank you so much in advance for supporting, watching, liking, and sharing this information on this journey. Stay tuned, there's more to come as we considering to unpack all of what it really takes to be a real entrepreneur on this journey. We thank you so much for your support and stay tuned. Well, hello there, good people. Happy Monday. I am so excited and grateful to be here. I thank you for joining this evening, taking time out of your schedule to interact with me virtually or on replay, because I still look at the responses on replay as well. So all support and any support that you give right now is amazing. Thank you so much for all that you are doing today. I hope that you all had a wonderful week. I hope that your day is ending up well. I mean, obviously, because you're sitting and you're joining me this evening. So I know we're going to have a good time. And we are going to learn some really amazing things. Let me just tell you how excited I am. And I'm going to before I tell you about my excitement, I got to introduce myself for those who don't really know who I am. Although you've been watching this series, so I know you. My name is Anita Pierce, and I am the principal owner of 11375. We are your business strategist, today I'm behind the scene doing tech support. So this is a part of my role as an entrepreneur. Um, but what we do at 11375 is we provide foundational support. We help other small businesses with strategy. We help with foundation, financial education as well. Um, we're certified with the state and city of New York as a minority women business enterprise. And this happened at the state level this year. So kudos and congratulations for that, because that's a process that we're actually going to talk more in depth about as we go along in this series, because we find that that is a conversation that's needed. So I have over 15 years of experience in financial services, coupled with nonprofit management. So if you are really interested in elevating your business and having, some real conversations about how you can, one, collaborate, two, create a new business, and also connect it to a social cause, please consider 11375. We are happy and will be happy to support you on your journey. So I want to just, I usually start out with a couple of experiences and tips before we actually bring on my guest, because I am excited about my guest. But before I get there, business strategy. Let's talk just a little bit about what that could look like for 2021, because clearly we are in this space where everybody is still attempting to figure out whether they should take the leap into business and whether it is something specifically for them. And one of the things that I can think about, I've actually, I don't like to say I've lived through a couple of crises, but this is one that I can actually share from my personal experience. While I did not start a business when we had the financial crisis, I understood and I remember reading how many millionaires were bred out as a result of that particular crisis. Now, it's a little bit different, in terms of this is a global pandemic that we're in. However, not however, because I don't want to minimize, what has been happening, because every person that I've talked to, including my daughter, has been impacted by this whole global pandemic. And so while there is opportunity, there are individuals who have lost their lives as a result of this global pandemic. So I actually want to do something, and which is to take a moment of just a short moment to recognize those who have transitioned as a result of this direct pandemic. So just a few moments of silence. So I want to thank you for honoring that, because even though, as I mentioned, there has been so many lives that have been changed as a result of this pandemic. Now, how do you take that experience as a budding entrepreneur, as one who is looking at 2020 is like, I need to, get permission before we approve 2021. Like, how do we really think about that? And so one of the things that that has helped me throughout this whole entire process is, one, that writing things down has become ever so critical. There's been things that I have done that I've written down like 2 or 3 years ago that I'm actually executing within this space right now. One, because it has allowed for the opportunity for me to do so, because I have written this down before. And don't be afraid to think through some of the things that you may want to do. I know one of the things I've been up for uh, my dreams are keeping me up at night right now because they are so big and so scary that right now I really want to take the opportunity to put things forward. And the only way I can put things forward is by making sure that I write them down, having a strategy of executing, connecting with the right individuals, not just anyone. Make sure that you align and share and build relationships with people who have similar aspirations. Now, here's what I mean by that, because oftentimes we think that, oh, I'm a business consultant, oh, she's a business consultant, or he's a business consultant, that we cannot collaborate. The truth is, and let me just get a little bit close to the camera. The truth is, when we go to the supermarket and we happen to go down a variety of different aisles, I just happen to sometimes land in the cereal aisle and we see a wide variety of the same product. It may taste differently, the packaging may be differently, but each cereal box offers nutrition or not, right? So just because someone is in the same line of business doesn't mean that we have to or we cannot collaborate. So, two things. The first thing is writing down your goals and vision. Yes, visioning, setting them in place is critical for success. Number two, as I say, always make friends. Your friends do not always have to look like you. Diversifying your friends and your support and your network is critical to the success of your business. Do not be afraid to do that. So, I am going to introduce my guest, and thank you all for joining. Enough about me. So, I had the opportunity to meet my guest as a result of me wandering around in different meetings. I think we met at was an event in Poughkeepsie. That was our actual first meeting. But little does Lauree know I've been like stalking her virtually, because I felt that if I'm to expand a business, I needed to follow and find networks that were helpful in all type of ways. What I discovered is an amazing person and through this process. And so I was then invited to speak. I want to say this was almost like a few months later to actually participate and to support her network. And so I'm going to read the formal bio like I always do, because I think it's important for you to understand just a little bit as to the guests, their background, and what they can offer. So Lauree, oh, thank you. I'm looking at the notes. I'm sorry. I got distracted, Lauree. Don't yell, don't cuss me out, Lauree. And I just lost my chain of thought. I think I'm having a senior moment and I'm not even there yet. So Lauree helps women make career and business leaps. For more than 2 decades, she has been an author, speaker, coach, a hugger, and she gives great hugs, by the way. I just want to put that out there as like a side note. With a huge client roster that includes executives at IBM, Microsoft, Liz Claiborne, and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Girl Scouts of the USA. 6 years ago, she founded the Hudson Valley Women in Business, the largest community of women business owners. This is north about New York City with 3,000 members. Not just me and Lauree, 3,000. And this has been growing. Her books are Simply Leap, Happy and How to, about facing the fear of reinvention while enjoying the crap out of your life. I probably need some more tools, Lauree. So we're gonna talk about more about that. And so I'm scared. She also has I'm scared and doing it anyway, and about her own reinvention after being diagnosed with a brain tumor at the age of 28. In 2019, she received the Women in Business Award from Hudson Valley Magazine. And to find out more about her writing and coaching, we will place it on scroll down below. So I would like to welcome my guest.
Hey.
What further ado. Hey, Lauree.
Hey.
How are you?
Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for being here and accepting my invitation, because I'm like the silent stalker, but I don't like to always admit that.
I was taking notes. I loved your advice.
Uh,
That's fantastic.
well, I appreciate you. So, Lauree, let's jump just a little bit in. Tell the audience what we don't know and what's not in your bio.
Yeah, sure. So I was thinking about this before being on, and I'm an introvert who somehow found herself in the front of the room. And I know you know what that's like. As an introvert growing up, very shy, I never spoke in school at all, even through college. And it is shocking to me that I am hired as a speaker and run a networking event. It is hysterical. In fact, I would have never imagined it. So I think that's the biggest thing to know, is that this is not comfortable. Like, this is not my normal zone. I'm usually in my pajamas on the couch. And I think it's really, actually, I'm sure your clients feel the same. It's really important for us to be real about that. I think that actually, as introverts, it makes us better marketers and better at business because we have a natural sensitivity to others. We listen really well. We're good researchers. We don't work the room outwardly focused. We work the room inwardly focused. And I think that I now can own that as a strength.
So I don't want to skip over the introvert part, right? Because most of my guests, when we're behind the scenes, I'm literally like shaking and feeling a sense of it's almost like a little bit of I cannot do this moment, right? But we push through. Describe what your push through moments look like, especially in speaking, because I don't want that to be like, just because you are identified as an introvert, that leadership quality or that you can't do anything goes away.
Yeah. Well, so the story I usually tell about speaking and being an introvert is the first speech I ever gave. And it was a 5-minute speech. It was like this accelerated TED Talk kind of style. And there were 450 people in attendance. And it was the first time I spoke. And I hid in the women's restroom, like in the stall, until the moment I had to go on. And I paced in the stall because I thought, okay, I might throw up. And if I need to, this is the right place for it. And if not, I'm just practice my speech the whole time. So I just paced back and forth. And I would say in the 4 hours before that, I just stood in heels, because the heels I was going to wear on stage, I felt like that was important, and in my pajamas, practicing 5-minute speech over and over again. I was almost hoarse by the time I went on stage, and I don't have to do it to that amount anymore. But I think that it's, it's pretty normal to feel like you're going to throw up or your palms sweating or something. And I now recognize, like, okay, I'm going to feel that way. I'm going to feel like a failure in advance. I'm going to feel like whatever this is, I'm probably not going to do it right. There's a deadline attached. I'm going to have to go live with you or go on stage or whatever. So I'm going to do that because I'm also an A student. And as an A student, I do my work. I show up, I do my homework. I put my best foot forward. So I'm gonna follow through on the commitment that I made to be on stage or whatever. But I'm also going to freak out before. And now I know the signs of my freak out, much like you just described. And, I push through it.
I haven't eaten anything yet because I didn't want to. So yes, I totally understand exactly what you are describing, and I thank you for sharing. So I would like to learn, what was your reason behind Simply Leap and also the Hudson Valley Women in Business. So I want to talk about that because I think that you have an amazing story behind both.
Thanks. So Simply Leap, my coaching business, I started 14 years ago. And before that, I was in marketing and media relations, working in the city, making my parents very proud because I had my 401k and I was moving up the corporate ladder like you were supposed to do, The A student was doing her best. And I realized this wasn't the path that I wanted to be on. I could be successful. I could figure out how to be an A student in marketing, but it wasn't the thing I was meant to do. And I wasn't sure what the next thing was. And so I spent a weekend figuring out my finances. You'll appreciate that. Figuring out my finances and saying, okay, how long can I float myself to figure this out? And I found that I had about 6 months, emergency fund, and that I could do that. I could probably find something before then, but I could, solidly give myself 6 months. And that Monday, I had 2 appointments that day. So I had an appointment with a doctor because I'd had this ear infection that wouldn't go away from a business trip I had just been on. And then I had a meeting with my bosses, my 3 bosses, to give my notice. And luckily, I'll say, or the universe or what have you came to my rescue and had the doctor's appointment before my meeting with my clients or my bosses, because I was diagnosed with a brain tumor that morning. Wow. And, most of us who have lived long enough have had a moment where the path we thought we were on just veers in a direction we would have never imagined before. And sitting in that room as a really healthy 28-year-old who had always done all the right things, who had made the right choices and tried to, make everybody happy, people pleaser from way back, looking at the MRI film and that golf ball size white blob in the middle of it that I knew wasn't supposed to be there, that just every puzzle piece in my body just shifted. And so I would say Simply Leap, which came 2 years later. So I went through multiple surgeries and I had a bout of meningitis and I was in the hospital for nearly a month and had to quit my job because I couldn't continue commuting into the city. And then was forced to find something else, which is really great. And by then it was I was really open to it because it wasn't a scary thing to quit my job anymore, because I had experienced something so much more frightening, real life, that quitting your job or disappointing people or not knowing what's next, those weren't scary anymore. Those weren't scary in the same way. And so a year later, I started a coaching program and became certified as a coach, and then started my business. So Simply Leap, I think, comes from realizing what's really important, and then it becomes so much easier to make all of the decisions because of that. And I think that that's what I help clients do. Our work is too important to who we are to not have something meaningful and to not make a difference and to not know that we're making a difference. And so that's why I help people leap into more meaningful careers and businesses of their own, because who we are as people, I think we define, most of us, especially the A students among us, really define ourselves, a good chunk of it, based on what we do for a living.
Wow. Okay, I need a moment. Yeah, it was great. Thank you. Now, what about, wow, Hudson Valley Women in Business, because that is also your baby as well.
Yeah.
Describe what's happening there.
Yeah, I would say Hudson Valley Women in Business is more of your typical entrepreneurial story, I think, because I solved my own problem. And it turns out that other people had the same problem needing solving. And so I grew up in the Hudson Valley. I moved to New York and Washington, D.C. for a bunch of years, and then came back a few years ago to help out my parents when they were sick. And I realized, gosh, if I'm going to stay in this area, I need to know more people than them. and so I went looking for other business owners, and specifically other women business owners, because I think that women do business differently. Mm-hmm. You said collaboration before, and I think collaboration is a hallmark of what a woman business owner looks to. We compete less than we collaborate. We are natural community builders. We're natural cheerleaders for one another. We want to lift other people up. maybe sometimes more than we even lift up ourselves, which I think can get in our way. But, we're natural cheerleaders and community builders and collaborators. So I wanted to have that kind of energy reflected back to me in the people, the people I was choosing to befriend in the area when I moved back. So I found 4 other women business owners in the area through a co-working space that I was part of. And we went out for a drink one night, and everyone turned to each other at the end and said, "This was great. It felt so good that we could be honest with one another about vulnerably, like ask the real questions that you can't at a chamber meeting or other networking event where you feel like you have to have it together." Mm-hmm. This is so great. We should do it again. So since then, which is December 2014, I've hosted a monthly meeting of women business owners. And that has shifted from the 5 of us that are around. We've had as many as 70 women in the room. And now we have, 40 to 50 people online through the pandemic at our monthly meetings. And so I really do think it's because, as you perfectly said about the cereal boxes, there are a lot of other networking groups nationally, internationally, and locally in our region. And why we've gotten to the size that we have and continue to grow is because somehow we do something slightly different, which is, I think, only bring business owners in the room. So a lot of networking events will be professionals, but you can be from a big, like a corporate entity and starting up. And it's so different when business owners are in the room together because it's on us. Money doesn't come in the door unless we figure out how to do it. And that just feels different. So I think that we provide something, and that vulnerable conversation that happens to say, like, I don't know how to do this, or I don't know if I'm going to get it right, that we get to say to each other that you might not say at another networking event where you're handing out business cards.
So in other words, as entrepreneurs, we do curse. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yes. Oh my God. Did I already? Because I was really in my head, I was saying not to.
No, we
okay.
You did not, but we do curse. I just wanted to just emphasize that when we're in, spaces where we are looking to collaborate and also connect, we do curse. So I just wanted to put that out there. What does your typical day look like? As your day, we're all behind, the camera, in pajamas or other, like, what does your day look like?
I want you to know that I have real pants on right now.
I
put on real pants for you. But that's how much I like you. So a typical day, actually, I heard this, a writer say this, and I can't remember where I heard this, but she said, I spend most of my day avoiding the thing that I'm supposed to be doing until I finally can't do anything else but writing the thing that, she's supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. And I feel a little like that sometimes. I think, having worked from home for a long time now, for 14 years, it's been easier for me, like, especially the pandemic. I was already working from home. This isn't a new thing, but I already know kind of my tells in terms of, needing to meander. I will say that I kind of need more time to do things because I ruminate, because I kind of have to go off and think about the answer before I come back. I have to watch a stupid TV show in the middle of the day, and then knowing and trusting that I'm going to come back. Mm-hmm. I get up for snacks way more often than I need them. And then I'm sure this is not the answer you wanted. But I spend the majority of the time connecting people. And I would say I'm thrilled that ends up being a good amount of my job. So I coach people one-on-one, clients who are making those meaningful leaps in their careers. And I also run this community of women business owners. People reach out to me all the time for, who do you think I should talk to about financial advice or marketing, or I'm scared, who else has done this before? And so I feel like I'm sharing knowledge and I'm making connections a lot of the time, which I really love doing. And back in the day when we were hugging, I was having a lot of coffees with people, but the introvert in me is that sad that I'm not doing that right
Yeah,
now.
me too. Although, yeah,
I miss hugging you, but really, I'm really happy here.
yeah, I know I'm laughing because there's like a number of folks who feel the same way. Like we wanna have the option of, being able to pick and choose our spaces, but now that we're all like confined, we're like yes. So that I want to talk about. So you've been in this virtual space a lot longer than most. What are some of the systems that you use to help you to move your business forward? Because I know for myself, I've had to become a little bit more concentrated in developing operational systems when I work by myself or when I work with other teams. Because can you share any that you use?
Well, I'll share a couple kind of personal operations things, which is I turned off the sound of all of the things that bing on my desktop. So it used to be like it would bing with an email coming in or a text that came in or a message, an IM that came in. And I just turned it all off because I knew the moment I heard that as a people pleaser, I would just jump over there.
Hmm.
So I turned off that and I turned it off on my phone as well. So I have to actively seek it out if I want to see what's happening. The other thing that I've done is set aside specific times when I'm going to be on social media or I'm going to check our Facebook community. I wish I was that good about setting a timer on email because that is probably the trickiest point for me because I really like being available. That is such a personal need of mine. But I'll say, the other things operationally is that great advice I got about business ownership is that assume that someone else is going to take over your business someday. You have a valuable asset in a business, whatever you've created, you have a valuable asset in what you've created that somebody else could buy, want to buy, or that you may want to sell at some point. You're going to retire. Let's hope we all retire someday and really enjoy that. And so the easiest way for that to ever happen is to have systems in place and just have written it down. So I know that there are CRM software that I should be using and other, like QuickBooks and stuff like that we should be using. But really, I have a lot of Google Docs that say, this is how I welcome members into the community. This is the email that I send them when they first sign on. This is what I send them if they upgrade to the next membership level. This is the posts that I share on different days. Like there is a process to it. So again, if I bring in an operations person or a new employee, they can take it on from there. That the business should not depend on us. And I didn't really get that until I started just writing down how I do things. That has been a big game changer for me.
And so just to recap, it is important that you write, I'm going to repeat this, write things down, write them down. And also a system that I think is very practical, utilizing Google Docs. Because the truth is, even as I'm looking at my my desktop, I do not have Word and I don't use it. I use Google Docs. And if there's something that, sending a link or a spreadsheet, those things make it so much more seamless. I cannot tell you how much better I've gotten by utilizing Google Docs or using Google as a system. And no, we're not promoting. We're not doing, but
although if they'd like to sponsor me, I'm totally available.
Yeah. But we are just talking about some of the systems that have worked to help to move our businesses forward. And that is definitely one of the keys that I also use personally as well. So I thank you for sharing. So we talked about what is like your target client that you work with?
Yeah, so I mentioned I'm an A student, and I would say that the majority of my clients are A students. And that doesn't mean that you got an A. It means that most of them were really comfortable in, let's say, third grade in elementary school. So in third grade, you knew exactly what was required. It was usually on a board, in construction paper written up that says, this is exactly what's required in order for you to get a gold star or a pat on the back or an A, or to know that you were doing the right thing. And I think that I tend to work with folks who are looking to make the right answer and are kind of desperate to figure out how I know I'm doing the right thing. And as adult, we don't usually get someone in front of us saying this is the right choice, because there's usually not one right choice. And so normally those are the clients that I work with, folks who kind of identify as the A student, who want to make the right choice when they're making this kind of huge, meaningful career leap. A good number of them are professionals, folks who work in corporate America now and have always had an idea about going out on their own, or don't really see a trajectory in the same. Yeah, they could keep doing their job. Yeah, they're moving to executive level. There's no problem there, but they don't have the fire that they did before. They could. So it's the same kind of thing actually I felt in the corporate world, which is I can keep doing this, but it doesn't give me the personal A. Like, it doesn't feel as fulfilling and meaningful. I don't know that I'm making a difference the way I want to. And that usually is the deciding moment where it's like, man, this is too important for me to dial it in at, or phone it in. Sorry, that's the right word, for me to phone it in at work, because it's too important. So that's usually when folks end up calling me.
So yes, that is really important. So wanted to do a follow-up. Would you be willing to share, because you've been in your practice for much longer than I have. What have you learned from your worst client? If I can even say worse, as like, what learnings have you had from a client that have given you like challenges?
Yeah, and I'm glad you put kind of the asterisks around worse, because that term is kind of hard. But I would say that from my most challenging clients, one of the things they often have in common is that they're not really ready. And I'm sure you know this, that it doesn't matter the number of ideas, the number of questions that you give them, the way you phrase it. If you're not ready, you're not going to hold yourself in the right place. You're not going to believe it when you hear it. You're not going to be willing to take the steps. You're going to blame somebody else. And I feel like sometimes I stop myself in talking with these kinds of clients and say, are you sure? Are you sure you really want to be here? Are you sure the thing that you said you wanted is the thing that you wanted? Because you're doing everything. You're working against yourself. You're working against this goal. And I would say that's the thing. I think you asked me a different way, but I wanted to describe first the biggest challenge. What I've learned from them is money isn't everything. Don't say yes just because you'd like to be paid. I would say, as a business owner, that's what I've learned. What I've learned about what they have in common is that if they're not ready, you're not going to be able to convince them.
Wow. So all money isn't good money. That's what you're telling us, Lauree?
You already knew that.
Well, I just want to say that out loud, because sometimes it, particularly since we're in this pandemic and we're all, we're coming at different angles financially. Yep. And, if you don't want to deal with the stress, sometimes it's like the excess stress, because you see the financial gain that could be attached to it or not. Sometimes at the end of the day, it's not worth it. And actually, Roxanne, hey, Miss Roxanne, she says so true about that. Don't waste your time. She said, don't waste your time.
Yeah. And it doesn't, the part of you convinced yourself in your head, like, oh, it's worth it because I'm being paid. And it truly is exactly what Roxanne said. It is wasting your time and your energy. Like, putting time into this work, whatever it is, or client or project, is taking away money and energy and time from something that's probably the next door to open is way more meaningful than this one that kind of dangled itself in front of you. Like, when you know in your gut that wasn't the one that you wanted. Yeah. And I want to say a tangent to that around money, because I'm writing another book right now, and it's about how women do business differently, and a whole section I have on money, because I'm finding that that how we feel about money, how we treat ourselves around money, and how we talk about money is almost more important than what you're charging to whether you're going to be successful or not, if that makes sense. It's like, yes, your pricing is really important, but again, you have to be ready to make that money. Set the prices all you want, but you need to be ready for that money to come in. You need to be okay with that. You need to have kind of the mental preparation of, I am worth it. I am worthy at this level. And so I feel like that also comes in so much with that story comes in when a tough client dangles themselves in front of us. Like, oh God, do I need the money? Right? Like that is where that money mindset really comes in, especially where the tough clients that we know are going to be tough show up.
So thanks for the tag, because that leads right into the question about understanding pricing and your value when you are setting up, as a business consultant, because, in addition, you also are an author. So I know that that's, something exciting that I want to actually talk about that process as well. But the pricing as in placing a value add on yourself as a business consultant. You want to talk about your process?
Sure. I got great advice when I was starting my business, which is a friend, or actually my mentor had said that she quotes whatever price she can say without throwing up. Speaking of throwing up, we've now talked about it twice.
Yeah.
But I thought I always keep that in my mind because because you kind of laugh at it, but at the same time, it's like, oh, I know what that number is. And early on in my business, every potential client that came to me, whether they stayed with me or not, or hired me or not, when we got to that part of the consultation, I upped it $50. Like, I upped my rate, or I upped my rate every single time. And so there is a year that I've gone back in my notes to look at, oh my gosh, this is like all these different, like all the clients I worked with were a different dollar number because I had just incrementally pushed myself to a new level. And I think that even now I do that when I welcome sponsors or especially when I'm doing sponsorship stuff, because that is such a new area for me as a founder of a business community where you're going to welcome sponsors more. I feel like I'm more comfortable about my pricing in terms of being a coach. When I'm hired as a speaker, that's another area where it's like, all right, I'm gonna up that number and see what happens. And then, so I'll stop there. That my main one is, say what you can, quote the price you can say without throwing up.
And then Denisha says, up
That's
my,
right.
up my. Hey, Denisha.
Agree.
Oh, goodness. This community is amazing. So yes, it's really important to place in understanding your value. And, I appreciate you sharing, that there are different, ways that we can, have the confidence in saying, this is what I bring to the table. This is what you can pay me. If not, someone else would be interested, and we can still probably do business together, but it just will look a little bit differently. So, and thank you for sharing that. So I wanted to ask, another question about business collaboration and what that entails for you. What does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I love collaboration because as women, I think that is a big thing that we do differently. I see collaboration as not having to figure it all out yourself, because I think that many of us went into owning a business also because we wanted freedom and autonomy. We wanted to be able to do it ourselves. And there comes a point in our own business growth where our growth is dependent on other people. Our growth is dependent on collaboration, on hiring, on good enough, on moving forward and being like, you know what, that could have been better, but it's done. And collaboration is a big part of that, is letting other people lift the boat with you, or promote you or spread the word, or not believing that it has to be us that's doing all of the actions in order for that to be a success.
And so before I ask my follow-up question, I see that Terry has a question. Hey, Terry, thank you for joining. How much do you charge to speak or consult? Would you mind sharing?
Yeah. Wow. All right. Thanks for the direct question, Terry. Yeah, it's interesting because I just was asked, okay, one, I will say it really depends on where you live. And having lived in cities, and two different cities, New York City and Washington, D.C., two very different places. I have a good number of clients in Denver, Colorado, also a very different city in terms of expectation around price. And the Hudson Valley, living in more of a suburban, rural environment, their expectation of price are different too. So I would say I'm sure that there are people who don't change their price depending on where they're located, but I see where the ceiling is in some of the prices that I offer. For depending on, like, if I'm asked to speak for like a chamber event or something like on a panel or something, and it's local, I'm usually in like the $200-300 range for that. I've been asked to keynote, and that is in the $2,000-3,000 range. I think that you get to be 10, and maybe this is my line, maybe that's the problem, but I think you get to be 10,000 when you're when my book hits the bestseller list, which would be great. But I feel like that might be the next level for me.
I mean, I actually feel like it could be now, but that's just my personal
awesome
opinion.
So, yay.
Yeah. And Terry, I will also share as well. It depends on budgets that you support the business. Terry says wait. So I'm waiting, Terry. Finish typing while I have my conversation. While I finish the conversation.
I mean, Terry's about to coach me. I have a feeling.
I know.
Okay.
Wait. So it depends. He's like $2,000. Yes, Terry. Those numbers or it depends. It
depends. 2,000. Do you think too low?
Yeah. So yes. Do you think it's too low, Terry? The wait. You told us to wait, so we're listening now. All right, so we'll give you a moment to type. And so as we're waiting, because I know we're in this digital space, which makes it amazing. Miss Lang asks, is it okay to have a lower rate as a coach in the beginning of your coaching career, or are you selling yourself short?
So good you asked the second question. Yeah, so I coach a number of coaches or beginning consultants, and so many of them go, oh, well, this is just the beta of the product that I developed, or I'm still in the coaching program right now. And we forget how many years of experience we have with the other things we've been doing. Just because you're new, perhaps, to this part of the career that you're in, what about all the other stuff that you did? I say that I'm 20 plus years in because that's how long it's been since I graduated college. Have I been coaching that long? No. Have I, but I've been working that long, and all of that comes together in the work that I'm doing and in what I bring to the conversations that I'm having. So I think that when you're pricing, remember that your full self with your full background. And again, I would quote a higher rate and let someone come back and say, can you give me a deal? Do you pay in payments? How about this? There are a lot of people, most people will try to negotiate with you. And it is better for them to negotiate when you've already quoted high than for you to quote low and try to negotiate up. Because imagine they're going to negotiate you either way, negotiate from a higher number, then negotiate from a lower number and get even lower. Anita, what do you have to say about that?
So I agree. So I agree. I feel I actually want to shout out if Denisha is still plugged in about her, kind of like coaching me through some things, because the reality is, even though my business have been established, there's certain gaps that I needed to learn. And the one thing that she always reminded me about my personal value, my assets, that I bring to the table, that sometimes we negotiate that away because we fear and don't believe that what we are offering is coming to the table is of value. And so I think about, when I first started, really in the coaching practice, I was not charging. I was actually giving my stuff away because I wanted people to really learn from me. But then, you have to start thinking about as a business owner. And, I have a financial education background and big in finances. It's like, so what is it that, you know, you don't have to go super high, but you have to understand who your target market is. If you are, looking to target like a specific group of individuals, then know what you are at your top, at your base. Include all your expenses. Like, and this is what I mean by expenses. If hourly, $200 or $300 is, what it will take for you to, if you had to travel, like if we were traveling, those are the type of things that you have to consider and build in to accommodate your costs. And so in the beginning, I agree with you about understanding your experience and adding value, even though you may be new to the market. And I just feel like you should also connect and talk with other coaches, because we will be willing to share like what what happens, and what is our experience, because the goal is for each coach, right, is to support one another in this ecosystem. Like, believe it or not, even though again we're in different spaces, I'll use the analogy again about walking down the supermarket aisle. You have a wide variety of cereals and also bread too. I want to mention the bread aisle is also packed with stuff. And so when you're thinking about that, it is really critical for you to understand your value add, and also that even though there are tons of us that may exist, we offer our own special sauce. Remember that. So I'm going to just pull back again because the chat box is lit. So
there's so many things about what you said I want to say, but let's go with your comments.
So Terry, I'm gonna jump back into Terry goes. That's okay. Great about the $2,000, because we were not sure what you were saying. So I'll let you answer Terry's question. He goes, "What type?"
I'm so ready.
Sorry if I'm misquoting your gender, so I apologize, Terry. What type of credentials might I need to get people to listen to the expertise that I might have?
Okay, so
come on, Terry.
Yeah. Okay. So such a great question. Thank you for asking it, because so many of us go, and exactly what you were just saying, Anita, that we give it away, or we downplay, or we lower our price because we feel like we have to prove it first. We feel like we have to be good enough. We have to have the right credential, or have had enough of these clients or speaking opportunities or whatever in order to elicit that price, like to deserve that price. And there aren't any extra credentials. In fact, I just was advising the other night. I was on with I had a session with a yoga instructor who actually was running and had founded a yoga studio. And she's like, I'm thinking about, because of the questions and stuff people ask me, especially other yoga instructors, about building their business, I'm thinking about getting a coaching certification. And she sent me a link to what the certification and program was. What do you think about it? How do I decide on this coaching program? And I said, start coaching now. You own a business in the yoga world, and people are asking you questions because they already believe you have something interesting to share. Mm-hmm. That's it. You ask really good questions anyway, because you've led workshops. What if you just started going right away? You don't need a credential. You don't need to prove anything to anybody except yourself. And honestly, and I don't know Terry at all, but we usually are the harshest critics on ourselves. We usually want to prove it to ourselves more than anybody else, that we're not good enough, or we need to do the next thing, or we need to hit the next milestone in order to be able to charge the level that we want. And the truth is, you can start now. Let somebody say no. I know that most of us are a little, again, like, really, really don't want to hear no, and we're afraid of it. And as a business owner, I know that I get no a lot, and I really don't like it. But that's actually the worst thing that can happen, is somebody say, no, not right now, or no, this isn't for me, or no, I want another cereal on the cereal aisle. But most of the time, people will come back and negotiate with you, or they'll say, you are worth it. Let me think about it, or you are worth it. And yes, I want to go for it. And we didn't say this about value either yet, which is when you have a higher price, people value it more. I have clients that, let's just drop the F-bomb, that fucking show up the higher the price is that I put on something. If I set a high price, I have clients that are like with their pencils sharpened, ready. And then I, as a coach, also that show up, because they're like, wow, they're really ready. I'm charging this amount, so I better show up. So price has a way to do things to our mind in a positive way, and also to our clients and the companies that we work with.
So you tell me you have to show up in a suit and tie, Lauree? Is this what you're telling me?
Well, I had one on, but no, not at all. Well, sometimes, I mean, for you, I will.
Yeah, sometimes well, I appreciate it, but it's totally not necessary. You see me, and I'm in like I just had a long day, and so I wanted to be as comfortable as possible. And so I wanted to make sure that anyone, even though we're not in a physical space, that we all are comfortable. So I'm going to throw up some more comments, because Ilana, hey Ilana, says that we have to let people know our value, our experience, and what we bring to the table is worth dollars. Ching ching, dollar signs. And also, Denisha says, agreed. If they could do it themselves, then they wouldn't need to hire you. Hello. Hello.
Yep.
Hello.
Yep. Absolutely. And I will say one other thing that I've done is when people ask me to speak, and I'm sure, Anita, this happens to you. In fact, I did it to you. So feel free to come back next time. But now that people ask me to speak, I say, oh, what is the honorarium? Like, that is the first thing. I'm like, yeah, I'm really interested. If I'm really interested, yeah, I'm really interested. What is your honorarium? And that is, in the speaker world, that is the word that people use when they're getting paid. And so I started, one, because I wanted to sound like a speaker, a legit speaker. I now say honorarium. Two, I've then put it out into the world. I can't back away, because I've just been asked to pay, and they may not have planned to do an honorarium, but they now have to have an answer, so they have to show up too. So I think that it's okay to do forcing mechanisms that get us to stand up for ourselves. And that is one of the ones that I use to get myself to hold myself up.
It's very good to know. So back to, I'm just going to be going back and forth to the questions. I want to make sure that we
Thank you for the questions. Yeah, these are great.
So Roxanne asks, and thank you for your questions again. This is just really exciting. As a coach, did you speak to an attorney regarding the legal aspects of the rate? Because, some people might like to skip out on payment. So I guess we need to talk about the scope of work and requirements, etc. So you first, Lauree.
Yeah. So it's a great question. Okay, so the first thing that I'll say is, if you build something based on worrying that people are going to skip out, you are putting energetically out into the world that people are going to skip out. So know that you will, and I sound so woo-woo when I say this, but what you put out, you get back. And so it's a totally great question, because you asked about an attorney, and I will answer that too. But I just want to say, notice first why and the intention behind whatever it is that you're doing to build your business. And so if you want to hire an attorney because it makes you feel legitimate, because there is some language, some copyright language that you want to add, or you want to learn how to structure an agreement, a coaching agreement with your clients, or any kind of agreement that you're building with the consulting business, absolutely 100%. Then I would say come at it from that perspective. I have talked to attorneys before about, for Hudson Valley Women in Business, for Simply Leap, I established an LLC, and I have a copyright for Hudson Valley Women in Business. And so I worked with an attorney on that. Great. I work with attorney on that. And that's been really helpful. And I also send clients a coaching agreement about our expectations for each other. So I include myself in the coaching agreement, as in my expectations for you and what you receive from me. Meaning, if you show up on time and ready, and I show up on time and ready for you, and I give them a 24-hour out clause, so like they can cancel 24 hours in advance, and if not, it'll be counted as a session. I also have them pay up front.
And so the other thing I will add is then, in as a part of my business scope of work and contract is that, we do the free session, right? So that we can understand whether we are a good match, because sometimes when you're doing that introductory conversation, you may think this is the person that you want to work with, but the reality is that's not the case. And then what I personally do now is I have them under an agreement for that they commit for 3 months. And because I personally believe that you can make some real changes within 90 days. And then after that, if you still want to pursue and work, which most of the time they do. But I just want to make sure that we get a commitment. And yes, it is a financial commitment, but it's also a commitment to your personal growth. And that to me is the highlight of when you're doing business coaching, because what tends to happen is you see someone that you've been working with over the past year or 6 months that they just like made this thing happen that they have been either having challenges with or others. So it's really, one of those things where as a business coach, and Lauree can attest this as well, I think for me, that's the meat of part of my business as to why I do it. You get to see and meet some really great individuals, and also really understanding that at the end of the day, you're sharing time and space to help individuals grow.
And the other thing I would add to that is, especially around pricing, that kind of relates to that and your own value, is that if you think about, it's so meaningful, the work that we're doing. It's exactly what you just said. It's so meaningful to be part of other people's trajectories and like the incredible achievements that they make that we've been part of in some way. That feels incredible. And think how much more money they're making having worked with you, or the prices that they're charging higher now because they feel more confident because we've worked together. That too should go along with that. Should go along with how you define your value is, what are they getting out of it? So if you've worked with clients even for a few months, or been working for over a year or so, you've worked with enough people where you're seeing the value that they've gotten out of something. Well, so if we put a dollar amount on the value that they've achieved or reached from your work together, or during the time that you work together, you get a part of that, which is what you charge to the next person. Like, oh, well, my value is, one of my clients has gone from an $800,000 company to a $1.2 million company with 4 employees. And my rates went up, because it's like, wait, that actually has a dollar amount. Not every client has a dollar amount, but I think that you can still put a value to helping someone build their confidence, to go after, to ask for a raise, or to go after something they haven't before. Even ask for a divorce. If you've built up the confidence to help someone make this major change in their life, that has a dollar value to it, for sure.
For sure. And we've seen some dollar amounts that speaking of divorce, that have really, yeah. So I want to ask about your books, because I know that you are an author. And so I know, including myself, like I have the notes, the Google Docs of 2 books that I am preparing to write. Like, so your journey led you into becoming an author. Describe that process, in addition to being a business coach and other?
Well, so my first book, I'm Scared and Doing It Anyway, was about my brain tumor and specifically about the reinvention that came after it. I got a divorce and I moved. I sold all my belongings. I started traveling around the world. Fully reinventing and then starting this business that I have now. I went to art school. I did all the things that I thought I couldn't do because I was trying to people please and do the right things. But that really came out of that first speech, the one where I almost threw up. I had decided that I wanted to try speaking, that to make a difference, I needed to reach more people, and and this speaking opportunity arrived. I applied, they accepted me, and I was like, oh crap, now I have to be in front of these people. And there was a moment in the speech. So the title of that speech was How My Brain Tumor Can Change Your Life. And I went through a couple different ways. And one of them was that it can help you be scared and doing anyway, like face fear in a really powerful way. And so I said in that moment, I'm here tonight because I'm scared and doing it anyway. Rah! And I did this big thing on stage, and people in the audience went rah! Back to me. And then the whole rest of the night, I am now I'm off stage, and now I feel like I'm really going to throw up again. I don't know if you have the residual sickness afterwards.
Yeah.
So I was in that stage, but standing amongst 400 people, and people kept coming up to me and saying, I'm scared and doing it anyway too. And it was because I kept hearing that I was like, oh, there's something about happens when we own our own fear. It helps other people be more vulnerable too. So that's actually where I got the idea of oh, I think I need to share about my experience with my brain tumor, because I hadn't shared any of that online. I felt like actually that people wouldn't hire me as a coach if they knew my story, because then I would be all vulnerable and I wouldn't be as strong as what I thought people needed to hear in order to hire me. But I realized the other was true. Actually, when I said I'm scared, more people came forward. So that actually compelled me to write the book, realizing that the only way to reach more people with the message was to put it out there in a bigger way. And as an introvert, writing is a little bit easier for me than speaking. Now I forgot what your question was because I just went on.
Well, I just wanted to find out about your writing process, not more about so you became an author, and that was one of the things did you check that off your bucket list, or it was just something that came about as a result of meeting a need and an opportunity?
Yeah. So I guess two things I heard in your question. One was, I never thought I could be in front of the room. I really never thought I could be an author, but yet I surround myself with people who are writers. I'm so impressed by it when people are writing a book or have one out there, that I didn't realize that that's why I think it's so important, because I want to do it too. So once I identified that, it was easier for me to see why it was important to add in. And I had a story to share that people were already telling me was worthwhile. So as a marketer, I need to know that there's a reason to do this. People are already interested before I'm going to produce something. So that helped. I would say in the how I did it, in case that's a curiosity, as for people who are I never imagined writing blog posts feel really comfortable to me. I like the space of that. Mm-hmm. Writing a book seems, oh my God, such a mountain to climb. And I'll never forget the friend of mine who basically said, take all of your blog posts, write them on individual index cards, the topic. On the back of each of those cards, write the general themes each of those blog posts are about. Flip all the cards over to the theme side. Organize all of the themes together, the ones that are the same. You now have chapters that you can literally cut and paste all those blog posts into those individual chapters, find ways to link them together. And you have already written the length of a book. That was helpful for me, because I had already written the length of a book, and I could use this. If I wanted to, I had a document that I could kind of massage into a book. I ended up starting another page and just writing from scratch, but that gave me the mechanics of that, the logistics of that was really helpful for me getting started, to know that I had already actually done this from the writing that I'd done. And I ended up writing the book. I ended up writing, actually both of them have been this way, is that I wrote kind of in vignette forms. So I write like the length of a blog post for an idea and then kind of move on to the next one. And the reason is because that's how I read. I also read in short chunks. And I like when I'm writing to feel like I'm done. When I've written something, I can go off and come back. So I don't know if that's really what you asked, but I'm adding writing process into your question.
No, that's appreciative. And Roxanne says it definitely takes a major life event to change our lives. And I couldn't agree with you more. And we started off, at the top of this hour. Can you believe that we've been chatting for an hour, Lauree? Can you believe? I can. I feel like you're on my couch right now. So, it's this pandemic, this global pandemic that has really forced us to think differently as to how we are going to do business. So, in wrapping up, but not forever, I wanted to ask a question about how you have shifted business-wise during this pandemic.
So the first thing that I did as things were happening, in addition to freaking out and all of the stories that we had in our head, like, am I going to lose money forever? Like, what's this going to, all that stuff is, one, I noticed I was freaking out and took care of myself. And the second thing that I did was I started going online into my community every day and posting a video. I don't like posting videos. I'm not like, it's just, but I did it because I felt like the thing that I knew how to do was to tell people it was going to be okay. My work, why I'm hired as a speaker is I'm scared of doing it anyway. Like, that's the message I get to talk about. I get to talk about how do we control the uncontrollable, which is I was in a hospital bed. How did I find ways to, I felt things were out of control, and yet I found ways to make the best of it, to get through to, and I talked a lot about mindset in there, and strong decisions that I made in the hospital from that bed changed everything that happened after that, changed even how I healed. And so I use those stories. So this is actually a perfect time for me to be speaking. So I just doubled down on the things, one, that I already knew how to do, and like reach out to people and tell them it's going to be okay. And two, I kept offering the work that I've been doing all along in this way. Like, hey, remember, I talk about what you have control over and how little we have control over. We already knew that. We're being reminded of it now, but here's what you have control over. And for anyone who's interested, those things are how you think about what's happening, how you talk about what's happening, the people you surround yourself with, and ultimately the choices that you make. That's all we have control over. We never have control over people in our lives, what happens, like the situation around us. We never have control over those, no matter how much we want them. And so those were the things that I think as the pandemic hit, I took care of myself. I reached out more and just made myself available, and to really listen to what people were needing. And I feel like now that we're further in, I feel like my messaging, I need to be more out with this messaging, get it out more. I feel like I need to promote that book again, which is what I'm thinking about doing now for the holiday season. And, but business is good because people are still trying to reinvent themselves in a time where they need help doing that.
Yeah, I would say for me, business is stable. And hey, she says, absolutely. Hey, Miss Blue, how are you? Thank you for joining. So I don't want to end the conversation, but I'm also conscious that we can all get like online fatigue. So I want to be respectful of everyone's time. And I want to ask if you can provide the audience with some parting tips, either starting, how would I define your organization? Hudson Valley Women of Business, more like a networking. It's more than networking, but it's more of a group of business collaborators, and or as a business coach, and or as an author. Like, what are some parting tips that you can offer the group that's actually tuned in?
Yeah, so I usually tend towards the marketing tips. So I'm going to leave you a couple of those, which is it's about other people and it's not about you. So I think one of the challenges that we usually have as business owners, and this is no matter how many years in business you are, is that when we're asked, what do you do? We start talking about what we do. And most people are saying, they're actually asking you, why would I be interested? What's in it for me that you're doing it? And so as opposed to saying I'm an author and a coach and a hugger, well, the hugger part usually works really well. But instead of saying that, talk about the meaningful careers that I help people leap into, that it's actually a leap, that it's scary, that we're constantly worrying about what other people think, and we need to clarify the idea and feel more confident about it. Those things are about you. Those things are about my ideal clients. And so that's why I talk about them. So I feel like this tip is more about make sure what you're doing and what you're putting out there is about the people that you're talking to, the people that you want to reach, the people that you want to proactively reach out to you. Because if you're talking about yourself and what you're up to, if it doesn't relate to them, they're not going to know that you're talking to them. So that would be the big tip. The second tip would be get off social media. I mean, right now, be here with us, but comparison is this nasty beast that worms its way into your head. And I can tell if I've spent 5 minutes too many scrolling, because I suddenly feel like, what's the point? No, I'm not as good as them. I haven't figured it out as the way they have. And so I highly recommend getting off social media once in a while. I'm on social media all the time, but to limit it, I think, is such an important thing, because our ideas are going to come from inside and talking to the people we are meant to be working with. Because that would be the other thing that my tip would be, is if you're not sure what to do, what to build, what it should look like, how much to price it, you are asking the wrong person, which you are asking yourself, you're asking the wrong person. Talk to 10 to 20 to 50, I'm not kidding, people who fit your ideal customer or your ideal client or your ideal employee. Talk to them, see what they all say in common. Not like, hey, I have this idea, what do you think of it? It's like, what's your problem? Like, what's your biggest challenge right now? What's keeping you up at night? What would help you solve it? They will tell you, and then you go and build that, and then they'll buy it. So I think I'll stop there.
That's what you got. And just going to put up another comment, and I appreciate that one of the comments said making connections in different spaces with different faces is very important. And so I just always like to look through to see if there's any questions or comments that I may have missed. And seeing.
Thanks everybody for weighing in on comments. It's so nice to have that live connection.
I know this is really exciting for me.
And that says a lot about you, Anita, that you gathered all of us together. So kudos to you.
I think everyone likes me today. We'll see how my daughter feels about me in a moment. So on that note, I want to let people know where we can find you. I do have it scrolling, but sometimes my eyes don't see. Where can we find you to connect, to continue the conversation?
Yeah, I'd love to continue this conversation. Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at Lauree_Ostrofsky, and also on Instagram at HVWIB, so Hudson Valley Women in Business. We have a very active Facebook community, and so if you are based in the Hudson Valley, or want to be based in the Hudson Valley, or moving in that direction, because there are a lot of folks that are moving up to our area, please reach out there. My website is LaureeOstrofsky.com. It's also simplyleap.com. And I have like a free, you can get free downloads of an excerpt from my books there. And you can also get my latest tip on there is how to get more time out of your day. It's actually reinventing your to-do list, because so many of us get overwhelmed by our to-do list. And this is narrowing it down so you actually feel like you're finished at the end of the day.
And so one more thing before I go, Hudson Valley Women in Business is celebrating 6 years.
Right.
And so if you are interested, because I tell everyone, people don't believe me, I'm like, if you are interested in sponsoring a spot, please reach out to Lauree, because you know, this is how we are connecting differently. But 6 years is amazing. And I don't have any balloons or anything, which I forgot.
I have some confetti. I'll just.
That works. Woo-hoo. That works. And
world's smallest pinata right here, just for your celebration. Always keep toys at your desk. Tip number 3.
I think my kid took well, okay, that's another story. But anyway, Hudson Valley Women in Business celebrating 6 years. If you're interested in sponsoring, there's opportunities available. Please reach out to Lauree to do so. So Lauree, I am going to say thank you so much.
Thank you. This is such a pleasure, Anita. I can't wait for our worlds to continue and meaningfully connect.
This is not enough time. This is not enough time to unpack this, but I definitely want to say thank you for taking time out of your busy day, your schedule, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Sending you birthday kisses and the big hug, because this is how we gotta do it virtually. And take good care. So long.
I am ready.
So I am. I told you my guests keep getting more and more amazing. I want to thank you all for supporting this series. It is one that I think that we all can learn from. You know, I just want to, again, please stay connected with Lauree. It is an opportunity for you to connect with another business coach. She's located based in the Hudson Valley, so be happy to link you, but her information is actually scrolling across the bottom. So please connect, like, share, connect. But I also wanted to remind all of you that this series is almost coming to an end. It has been a wonderful time. We actually have 2 more speakers who are going to be participating. Join me on Thursday if your schedule permits, and we'll be talking with the former owner of the Harlem Tea Room. So I think that you're going to be in for another treat for that. And then on Monday, we will be wrapping up with the head of the Upstate Black Chamber of Commerce. But now, just because we are finishing up this series doesn't mean that we're going to stop, because this has been something that has been stirring up, and people are really excited about what we're presenting, because we are really unpacking what it looks like to be with entrepreneur on a day-to-day basis. And we don't want to sugarcoat it, because being an entrepreneur is not really the easiest thing, but we are all taking a leap and jumping out. And, you know, just living out these dreams that we've been writing down for some time. So please stay tuned, stay locked. But again, I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your schedule. It is amazing when I have the opportunity to interact with an online community. But I also want to take a moment to highlight some other entrepreneurs that are that I've engaged in, had business with over the past year or so, that I would like to share. So until until Thursday, I would love to have you join me, but stay tuned and stay locked. Take good care. So long.